What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. I am your host, Chris Raybon, and I am joined by my co-host, one of the top rankers in the game for a minute now. Top 5 over the last 3 seasons, numerous trophies for in-season accuracy, none other than the odds maker, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on? Glad we finally got a chance to hang out this summer. What's good, man?
Yeah. That was fun hanging out over the weekend.
All right, we're going to jump into running backs this week. This episode is going to be the RB1 tier, and then next episode will be the dreaded frozen pond tier, or at least we'll start to get into that. But before we jump into the RB1 Bijan Robinson, if you're getting ready to dominate your fantasy league this year, why not use the same projections that Sean and I use? Well, guess what? You can. Our Fantasy Labs NFL subscription gives you access to all of our player rankings, customizable draft cheat sheets, and more. And new subscribers can use code FLEX20, that's FLEX20, for $20 of shmoney off at fantasylabs.com/flex. That's fantasylabs.com/flex with code FLEX20 for $20 off. So go and smash your league. Use code FLEX20 for $20 off at fantasylabs.com/flex. RB1. Bijan Robinson, Sean, he's overtaken Saquon Barkley in most spots. My question to you is, does he actually have a safer workload than Barkley despite the presence of Tyler Algier last year? Bijan was at 365 touches, Algier 101, and 75% snap rate for Bijan. So 75-25 split in terms of the snaps. A little bit more in favor of Bijan in terms of the touches, though. What say you?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to set it up because, yes, Algier kind of prevents Bijan from having a more, stable workload compared to Saquon Barkley. But he's also the reason why we haven't really seen Bijan at, ultimate ceiling Bijan, which is when Algier misses time. Algier has been healthy and active for all of Bijan's 34 games in his career. So that, kind of lowered ceiling has been present his entire career. And that could be the case again this year where, Algier plays 17 games. And we've seen Bijan can still be elite in that scenario. But we have yet to see a situation where Algier's out. So I think with Bijan, surpassing Barkley as RB1 makes sense when you think of it that way. And just the fact that Bijan is in his literal prime heading into year 3. He's 23 years old. This is really when running backs really erupt and typically is their true prime. So I can see why people get there. I still have these two very, very close. I think you're just being nitpicky which one's first or second. But yeah, he doesn't have on the flip side, he doesn't have the concerns that some people have with Barkley, who had over 400 touches last year. So it goes the other way with that, where the huge workload from Barkley last year could hurt him this year. But yeah, as of now, I still have Barkley. We'll talk about Barkley in a second. I still have him slightly ahead of Bijan. But again, we've yet to see Bijan's true ceiling. So that's why I can understand why people would be taking him first right now.
Yeah, I think Barkley probably has a lower floor just because of some of the other factors, but just in terms of straight up usage, I do think, Bijan should be the RB2, at least the way, that's where he is in my ranks as well. It is pretty close, but I do, anytime you have a 75-25 split, I mean, it could always go the other way too. You mentioned that, Algier's been healthy. Bijan's been healthy. They've just both been healthy. So, I mean, that could kind of go either direction. You did lose, an interior lineman and endowment. So there's some changes here. But ultimately, like you said, young running back, elite talent entering his prime, shouldn't be too much of an issue unless, I mean, he's proven, he's looked pretty durable thus far in his career. So barring injury, you shouldn't really disappoint to, that much. Whereas I feel like Barkley, there's probably a little bit more kind of fear, and it is because of those, I believe it's 472 regular and postseason touches combined. Now he's not that old at age 28, but he has missed time at numerous points in his career. He has been a little up and down in his career, depending on, the offensive line and the situation around him. We do expect a little pass volume upward regression for the Eagles this year in terms of their game script. And we don't expect Barkley to just rip off 11 scores outside the red zone this year. So, I mean, when you put all that together, there, how are you looking at Barkley this year? Is he a guy that you're passing on when you're up that early in the draft for a receiver? Do you like to kind of, or is he a guy you're kind of no questions asked, just gobbling him up?
I think I'm more the latter. No questions asked, gobble him up. I just hate having the first overall pick. I think, just getting whatever, like Bijan or Barkley, I'm fine with either. I was in a charity draft where, I had the 5th overall pick with a ton of sharp experts, and Barkley fell to me at 5. So I took him. That's kind of treating it. But I think people are kind of overcomplicating it. So not sure if you know the bell curve meme, but I made one last year for Devon Achane, who was very tricky to kind of cap heading into last year. It kind of feels the same with Barkley. So the left side of the meme is, it's a normal distribution. The left side's the low IQ mouth breather that just says, Saquon RB1 because, he was RB1 last year. And then the middle guy is the sweaty glasses nerd that's saying, anybody that gets over 400 touches regresses the next year. And then the high IQ, the Zen Master guy on the right's just Saquon RB1. Let's not overthink it. He's an elite running back. Still, the tail end of his prime, playing in an elite scheme behind an elite offensive line. Don't overthink it. And I'm kind of like a mixture of the low IQ guy and the high Q guy here. But, I still have him RB1. And I think that people are right to point out that the high volume last year and running backs tend to regress. I mean, I'm projecting Barkley for over 50 fewer points this year, and he's still my RB1. So you and I, when we make our projections, we're already kind of factoring in regression as is. So I think people kind of overlook or fail to recognize that I can still regress and still be the RB1 when you project his baselines and stuff. So that's why I kind of joked about it. I posted it on Twitter, but that's why it's the middle guy's right. The people that are kind of doubting Barkley repeating as RB1, they're correct, but that kind of underscores how volatile running backs are. Barkley could, get hurt week 1 and miss 7 weeks and, not be the RB1 again. Anything can happen, but when you make projections and you project the next season, it's really hard for me to get him outside of the top 2. So that's why I think some people are kind of right in their underlying reasons to be scared. But at the end of the day, he's still a top 2 back for me.
Yeah, and I think where I usually land is that, if I can get Ja'Marr Chase there, whether it's Barkley or Bijan, I just take Chase.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Jefferson, I know he's going through some things injury wise, so you have to monitor that. But earlier in the offseason before that, I was confident with taking him there at points, and it does feel like the reason Barkley is the RB1 for us. This whole top 5 is kind of shaky in their own kind of ways. They have tremendous upside, but we also there is that, I guess, what did you call him? Is it the low IQ guy or I don't know, but the person who says,
I call him
he's last year kind of lulled us into really getting behind these running backs again, because it was kind of a bit of an outlier year in terms of wide receivers missed more games than usual, running backs missed fewer games than usual, and older running backs that change teams, performed better than usual, which historically speaking tends not to be the case. So it was just a kind of a different year than we're used to from running back. So, naturally, I think you could see some regression here. And I think more so it's just how you treat the order or how you treat the positional differences more so than, it's hard to nitpick the order too much because we'll talk about a few other guys where, there's some floor cases for them, but also some ceiling cases. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is chief among them because he's not, kind of like some of these other guys where it's age or whatnot, but workload could technically be a concern. I only say that because he's going RB3. Anytime you're RB3 and there's still kind of a 1A, 1B situation, although reportedly in camp, he is now taking those 1A reps. Like he's on the field with the first team consistently, which he was not for much of his career. So I do think he's going to, it's kind of shaping up to where they're not going to be able to leave him off the field. But what do you think about paying off this cost here? RB3, he is seeing more reps outside reportedly at camp, more reps at receiver, more reps with Montgomery on the field at the same time. 52 receptions for Gibbs each of his first 2 years.
Yeah, that's the state of the running back position in this day and age. We're at RB3 and we're already talking about a guy that, sort of splits work with his backup or, with the starter. I don't know what the hell you even call Monty. But, I mean, he was the RB4 last year when Monty was healthy from weeks 1 through 14. Obviously, that was like the Lions offense at near perfection with Ben Johnson and their offensive line intact. So those two variables changes here. We've talked about that extensively, that, John Morton's taking over as offensive coordinator. The offensive line lost a couple starters. It might not be as good this year. However, that could actually work in Gibbs' favor because we don't know if John Morton's going to just use Gibbs as a workhorse back. He very well could. So that could help Gibbs. And if the offense takes a step back, I don't know if that impacts Gibbs too much. He's an elite back, arguably, top 3 running back in the league. And, when Monty missed week 16, 17, Gibbs was RB2. He was only RB2 because I think Jonathan Taylor just went apeshit. But, if Monty misses time, Gibbs is the RB1 in my weekly model, without a doubt. So he does have RB1 upside if Monty misses time. And again, even if Monty doesn't miss time, if they just simply use Gibbs more, he has RB1 overall upside. So I think RB3 is a fair price for him, or he does have, room to grow from there even. So despite the concerns, I think Gibbs has the talent and, sneaky injury upside to even go up from there. So, we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey, who has injury concerns, but I think Gibbs at RB3 still makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I think when you look at him there, and at first, your first inclination is to say, that's a little shaky for a guy that's, it was still, like you said, more of a 1A, 1B situation. But when you think about what he did with Montgomery only missing 3 games and just how good he is, I see a situation where he could just Dion Lewis Montgomery, where that year, I think it was Henry's second or third year, he just, it was expected to be a split of some sort, and Henry just kind of ran away with it. I mean, Gibbs is that good. Now, it sounds like they're making a concerted effort to just get their best players on the field. So, they'll probably do more with 2 running back sets. And I'm guessing Gibbs is going to set a career high in reception. So, yeah, there's no real ceiling for Gibbs. I mean, we always thought the knock on him playing in that committee up until this year, for his first 2 years was, okay, he's not really the goal line back. He's not going to get touchdowns. And he tied for the league lead in rushing touchdowns last season. So there's really nothing that this guy can't do. I guess the only kind of question marks now is, how conservative do you think Dan Campbell's going to be throughout the preseason? Because it was kind of surprising even that he didn't even play like his rookies or anybody in that first game. And now maybe that was just because it's like they have the extra game.
Yeah.
But if we don't really get a chance to see that new offensive line, and it just there would be some question marks kind of coming into week one. Now the Lions could just smash as they usually do, but any thoughts there? Like, you think we're gonna see like some of the new pieces of this Lion offense at all in the preseason, or do you think we're just gonna kind of be heavy on week one?
You hit the nail on the head. I think just the fact that it is an extra game, having the Hall of Fame game, is why Campbell held out some of the rookies. He didn't hold out to Slaw, who looked great. But I think that the rookies that they think will start or be key players, they didn't play because of the extra game. So, yeah, we'll find out more this week, but I think we'll see some of the starters play this week. Hopefully Gibbs doesn't play, but it'd be nice to see, their offensive line. They have Ratledge, the rookie, have him get some reps and stuff. But yeah, the offensive line, I think you've been right about this. I think this more impacts Monty than it does Gibbs. I think Gibbs is just so good, it probably won't matter. Plus his, receiving usage can get around, if the offensive line does struggle. So I think the offensive line specifically will kind of impact the way I, project Monty's floor. But for Gibbs, I don't think there's too much concerns there.
Yeah, and I guess if we don't see him, that means they're just confident that they're ready to go with. They have the team scrimmages against the opponents that they look at too. So Christian McCaffrey, I mean, this is a fire alarm, of course, or some type of siren goes off the minute I say his name. This is an ominous
sign. Do not draft Christian McCaffrey. That's the sign right there.
I mean, I really wasn't, honestly. I'm not really getting too much of McCaffrey. It's not that I don't think he deserves to be here. I do think it's a pretty aggressive ranking because, I mean, this guy, like, we talk about how projecting injuries is tough. It's kind of like a coin flip, but the deeper you get into somebody's career, the more you do start to see trends emerge. And with running backs especially, you don't want a guy with too much wear and tread on the tires. And McCaffrey, since 2020, has played in 3, 7, 17, 16, and 4 games. So when he struggled with injury, he's really struggled with injury. And, it's kind of concerning that he kind of got through 2 full seasons and then just couldn't get through a third. Now he's 29, so that's, peak age of running back is usually around 27. There were some efficiency declines in terms of the rushing last year, but it's a pretty small sample. How are you handicapping McCaffrey here? And it looks like his backup, Isaac Guerrero, will miss some time, so they don't got much in terms of experience really directly behind McCaffrey either, unless you think Amir Abdullah ends up making the roster.
Well, he did have that amazing game last year. But I think, if Christian McCaffrey is healthy, obviously he should be going in this range. I think anybody that took McCaffrey first overall last year is pretty much when you had to take him. Won't be drafting him this year after that horrible experience. But like you said, injuries are just hard to predict. And he's had 5 seasons where he played 16 plus games and 3 seasons now where he's played 7 or fewer. So that's just kind of been the theme with him. He's either healthy or he isn't. But that's not really predictive. But I think the fact that he is sort of starting the decline phase, age 29, is a concern for me. But again, he is in like a literal cheat code for running backs in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. So when healthy, I mean, he's, one of the best running backs in fantasy. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to risk management. How much risk are you willing to take on? And I know you and I have talked about this. Usually in the first couple rounds, we're just trying to avoid disaster. Yep. And I mean, with McCaffrey, we don't really know how many games he's going to play this year. He's healthy right now, right? So there's no real injury concern at the moment, but just given his history, that's a red flag for me. So I'm more comfortable taking a guy like Ashton Jeanty ahead of him. He's in his rookie season, so probably more likely to stay healthy. I'm just more comfortable taking other backs that I have less concerns with. But if McCaffrey does fall outside of the top 5, which he has, then you can consider him. But it's just a tricky projection because, projecting injuries is nearly impossible. So with McCaffrey, yeah, he's usually a guy I pass on. But I wouldn't be shocked. The most likely scenario is he stays healthy all season and posts, top 4 score. It's just, if I miss out on him and take a guy like Jeanty that still is a top 5 back, I won't lose any sleep over it.
Yeah, he's my RB8. So
oh, there you go.
I'm out on him.
Yeah.
I am concerned right now about his injuries. I mean, this is a guy who he lulled us to sleep into taking him number 1, and then he played 4 games and wasn't he overseas getting all types of what people do when their legs don't work.
We didn't know he was missing week 1 until like a couple days before, right?
That's concerning. That's why it's concerning now.
and then we can't. It also means we can't trust Kyle Shanahan to tell us what the hell's going on. I think that too. I like food for thought. What if Kyle Shanahan is predictive and like injuries are predictive with Shanahan? Because like the Niners have been one of the most, if not the most injured team since Shanahan took over. And I just find it a little odd that McCaffrey has missed more than half of 3 of the last 5 seasons. And what does Shanahan and Lynch do? They let go Elijah Mitchell, who has given him good snaps when he's healthy. He also can't stay healthy. But then they trade Jordan Mason. And now Garendo's hurt. So, like, I don't know if Shanahan and Lynch truly get it. Like, it seems like, oh, yeah, well, McCaffrey's back. Let's run him into the ground again. It's like, right.
Like, I feel like that was a very that was kind of bold to me to trade Mason. Like, I get it. It's a running back. You try to get what you can. But I thought Mason at times, or at least last year, ran better than McCaffrey did pretty much at all times. So, that could be a move that doesn't look very good. We'll talk about Mason in our next episode when we get down to that tier and, the Vikings and Aaron Jones and whatnot. But yeah, that could be something to keep in mind with Shanahan, just like we are always going to be confident that his quarterbacks are going to be above average in yards per attempt, no matter if it's like a 5th string Nick Mullins journeyman type of guy or what. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's just going to run his backs into the ground. I mean, it's already happening. So yeah, I'm weighing his floor pretty heavily here. I don't want to take him where he's going. Derrick Henry, he's another one that's kind of tough. I mean, the thing with him is he doesn't really give us those same reasons to worry. He just keeps on trucking.
Yeah.
He another magnificent season last year. He's going to be 32 by the time the season ends.
Crazy.
At some point, Father Time has to catch up to him, especially just given, the body type and, the physical nature of the NFL. I mean, you would think it's going to be a pretty steep cliff when Henry does start falling off, but you think he has another, 1921 in terms of the yardage last year, nearly 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns, tied for the league lead. Do you think he has another one of those in him?
Yeah, I think he has at least one more in him. That's all we care about this year, right? And I think it was even back in like the Friedman days on this pod, I said, just don't bet against Derrick Henry. Eventually I'll be wrong. But at that point I'll be like 9 for 10, so 90%. So I'm going to keep riding Henry till the wheels fall off. He's my RB4 right now. And last year I was talking about how many more touchdowns he would have scored in the Ravens offense versus the Titans in 2023. And, sure enough, he tied a career high, 18 touchdowns last season. And I think this is something you've touched on, but, Lamar's an elite runner, obviously, but near the goal line, they don't really he doesn't use his legs much. I know you've taken his under on his rushing prop. Usually
every year.
Yeah, usually he scores, 3 to 4 rushing touchdowns, which people, don't really know. So, Henry just has, every single goal line touch in this offense, and it's elite offense. So this is just the dream spot for Henry. So yeah, the age is going to catch up. It always does. But he's sort of defied.
Oh, is that a siren I'm hearing in the background?
Yeah. Oh no,
is that the McCaffrey siren? Oh no!
No, we
got to be out on Henry. No. Knock him down. Just bump up Jeanty. Let's go.
Damn it! Well, it's going to happen. I still think it will. Ignoring the sirens on this, it's not going to happen this year. Please don't. But
last words.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that he is going to start to decline. I mean, he's in his early 30s, but I think just the move to the elite offense in the Ravens will kind of help soften the decline, like we saw last year. I just think having defenses having to worry about Lamar just opens things up for Henry a ton. So I think that kind of offsets things. But if you watch him last year, he looks every bit as good as he did earlier in his career. He's, a beast, and he takes excellent care of his body. So I think that if there's anybody that can defy age curves, it's Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he's my RB6, so I'm higher on him than McCaffrey. I think
same.
I just watching them, just kind of putting everything together. I just feel a lot better about the floor with Henry. Now it's still low. And I do think that something that goes a little bit overlooked with Henry is he could get off to a slow start, relatively speaking, because the Ravens start at Buffalo, then they got Cleveland, which okay, but then Detroit at KC, Houston, Rams, bye. So you got in the first 7 weeks of the season, you got a bye and 5 matchups where the game script might not be a Henry game script necessarily. So that is something to kind of keep in mind with him, because when you're drafting a guy that high, you want him to hit the ground running and kind of go from there. Maybe if you feel like he's going to drop off, you can trade him or whatever not. But that is a little bit concerning. But ultimately, there's been no sign yet of a real decline for Henry. So not really, you can't really knock him too much for the age. Jeanty's next up. I mean, this guy, I don't remember a college prospect that I've just been this sure about. I mean, just watching him, you could just tell that he's just going to be a beast in the NFL. But I guess the only thing is now, going in the top 6, 0 track record, that could make some people queasy. I mean, lay out the case. Like, how high is his floor? Does he get, is he like a true three down back? If he comes out on some passing downs, does it even matter? Break it down.
Yeah, I think his floor is still, a top 10 back if he stays healthy, because on day one, he should be a workhorse back where he's taking pretty much every snap. Again, if somebody comes in to do a pass blocking snap, we don't care about those, but he's a true 3-down back. He could be an excellent pass catching back, obviously a great early down back. So I think he's going to get every snap he can handle, which is rare this day and age. And he's a generational prospect. So he's somebody I'm willing to invest in day one. The only knock I would have on him is outside of his control. He's on the Raiders. They're expected to be a below average offense in terms of points per game. The odds of him scoring double-digit touchdowns might be slightly less than 50-50. But I think that, Geno Smith taking over, and you have, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly taking over. They have Brock Bowers. Jonte Thornton's pretty good. I just think this offense could surprise, and that could only help Jeanty. And obviously he's a part of that. So I think just the only really thing that I have in my projections that he's not elite in is his touchdown upside, but that could change if the Raiders offense is really good this year. So I'd say his floor is top 10 if he stays healthy, just based on volume. But his ceiling is, RB1 overall. Why not? Even as a rookie, he has the talent to do it. So that's why, anytime I can get him inside the top 5, I have Henry and Jeanty as my 4-5. I have them over McCaffrey. I think you got to do it. I think he's a safe bet for the first round with, upside that we don't even know what it is yet. So I love taking Jeanty if he does fall to me in the first round.
Yeah, he's my RB4. I feel better about him than all these old guys. Like, if I'm looking at these, with even as crazy as it sounds, taking Henry, taking McCaffrey, I know that there's going to be a range of outcomes, X amount of time, X percentage of time, if you played the season 1,000 times or whatever, where I'm going to regret it. Whereas I think that percentage is going to be a lot smaller with Jeanty. I'm just not going to regret it. Maybe he'll get hurt or something and, something unforeseen, but there's not really anything else. And I feel like, to your point, the market is projecting the Raiders is like this bottom 5 scoring offense where, I guess their biggest weaknesses are maybe a spot or two on the O-line and the back end of their who's going to be their wide receiver 2-3. But they got some talent. Jacoby Myers still there. If Thornton hints, Tucker's got some speed. Bowers obviously is really your slot receiver, so that might be moot anyway. And then you do got, I think the O-line, especially on the left side, is pretty solid. So we could be underestimating this offense greatly because Geno, he's had some pretty good seasons, and he could at least be a league average, if not above, offense, or lead a league average offense. So yeah, I feel really good about Jeanty. I agree. His ceiling is RB1 overall, and unlike some of these other guys, doesn't really have any of that wear and tear. So I have no reservations about taking Ashton Jeanty. All right, now that we are halfway through the top 12, we're on the Fantasy Flex presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Let's do a segment presented by Yahoo Fantasy looking at risers and fallers. Sean, so far we've discussed Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Ashton Jeanty. Looking at those top 6 running backs, who sticks out as the biggest riser this year, and who's missing from last season as the biggest faller?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest riser has to be Derrick Henry, who went from RB10 last year up to RB5 this year. And who of all people in their 30s would see their stock go up other than Derrick Henry? And for the fallers, I'd say the biggest faller has to be Breece Hall, going from RB3 last year down to high-end RB2, but RB14. We've seen his stock really fall over the past year. So Breece Hall has to be the biggest faller for sure.
All right, those are your Yahoo Fantasy running back risers and fallers. As a reminder, this episode of the Fantasy Flex is presented by Yahoo Fantasy, and it's my favorite time of the year with the NFL season almost here, and that means fantasy's in full swing, and Sean and I this year are playing with Yahoo Fantasy, and they are taking it up a notch, giving you a fantasy football experience like never before. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. And to kick things off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. And Guillotine is a killer new way to play fantasy football where the lowest scoring team gets chopped each week until there's one team left standing. So with the NFL season just around the corner, now is the time to get your league mates together and give Yahoo's new Guillotine mode a try. But if you're more into the classics, don't worry. You can still play in a traditional head-to-head private league or join a public league as well. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/flex. That's yahoofantasy.com/flex. And RB7, Devon Achane. So he's been in the news a little bit. We're hearing that, he got called out by, who was it, Tyreek Hill, saying, I don't know if he's big enough to be the goal line back. At the same time, McDaniel has said Achane's going to see a step up in role now with no Mostert on the roster, no Jeff Wilson on the roster. So can he take advantage of what is probably going to be a massive workload with a ton of receiving work yet again? Or will the offensive line hold him back? Will he not get that goal line work? I know they got Madison there, who I guess is kind of profiles as more. Achane got 12 of the 17 running back carries inside the 5 last season and scored just 3 times. And then the year before that, his rookie year, and he was in and out of the lineup a little bit, but just 4 carries inside the 5 of the 25 backfield carries that Miami had in scoring position. But he scored in 3 of those 4. So, I mean, he hasn't necessarily been a bad goal line back. I think the sample is too small to really determine that. But how are you treating Achane, just given that he has been kind of buzzing a little bit?
Yeah, so I think Achane last year was maybe the trickiest projection or rank for me at running back. He was really difficult to project because we knew we were going to see, an increase in volume, but there was no way he would be able to maintain that efficiency. And sure enough, he saw over, twice as many touches, and his efficiency, fell way off. But when you look through the season, a lot of it really wasn't his fault. Because he did suffer that high ankle injury back in week 1, and he played through it. So that, robbed his efficiency a bit. And then Tua missed weeks 3 through 7 where the offense completely fell apart. That wasn't his fault. And the offensive line just stunk. So when you look at like the efficiency on, short yardage work, things like that, Achane didn't do that bad. Everybody did bad. So I think it's more of an offensive problem. So taking your point and Tyreek Hill's point, yeah, if, Madison or Jalen Wright end up taking the goal line work, I don't know if it even matters for Achane because he's not really banking a ton on, rushing scores for fantasy production. It's all about, catching passes and even receiving touchdowns. So I think for Achane to provide value here, he just has to stay healthy and be the focal point of the passing offense. And I think with that moving on from Jonnu Smith, I think he could see even more targets because of that. So I still like Achane in the top 10. And the one thing I would caution with him is with all Dolphins skill players is if Tua misses time, everybody's value takes a big hit. Achane, he averaged the 54th most points per game in the 4 or 5 weeks when Tua was out. That's not good. So with the added risk of, Achane potentially missing time, which is, every running back, you also have to worry about Tua missing time, which is obviously a concern. So I like Achane, the talent and his situation. And, my median projection has him here. But in this, early stage of the draft, I am a bit concerned of just how the offense looks without Tua. So that's kind of a red flag for me with Achane, where, his rank should be around here, but you got to be careful just because there is that hidden floor for him and the entire offense if Tua does miss time.
Yeah, I'm actually not as concerned. I think he's a little bit anti-fragile in that way, in the sense that, yes, last year he didn't play or he didn't score nearly as much without Tua, but they were still kind of determining his role. Like, he wasn't in final form throughout the season. Like, they were kind of determining what his role was going to be, especially in the passing game. And I think this year, if you kind of look at, okay, moving on from Jonnu Smith, who got 111 targets and 88 catches last season. Well, Achane got 87 targets, 78 catches. If Tua's out, Achane's just getting the ball all the time. Like, it's just like that's just the guy that's easiest to get the ball to, because we know even when Tua's in there, it's been harder to get the ball to Jalen Waddle ever since defense has kind of figured him out and started taking away certain passing lanes and certain things. And then we saw what happened with Tyreek Hill and how it's even with Hill being healthy for the entire season or being out there for the entire season, he's getting older. It's not going to necessarily be as easy to get the ball to him, given the type of ways that you want to get him the ball. So I think Achane this year, like McDaniel, no. I mean, he has no Jonnu to fall back on. Like last year, you had that was his other short area guy where, Jonnu was averaging just 10 yards per catch. So he was doing a lot as kind of another one of those guys close to the line of scrimmage. You don't really have that this year. I mean, Darren, with all due respect to Darren Waller, this is a guy who got, called on for one blocking assignment, decided he wanted to retire. And now he's back, but he's on the pup again. I mean, because he's not in football shape yet. So I think Achane, the worse it gets in Miami, the more likely it is that he just pushes for 100 plus catches and kind of makes up for whatever he's not doing in the run game. And we know he still has, like, now it's kind of where we could just be underrating his rushing upside. Because remember, he has the upside to average Jahmyr Gibbs like Nick Chubb early career, like yard per carry. We saw that in his rookie year when he carried 103 times for 800 yards. That's 7.8 yards in attempt. Last year, he was around league average at 4.5. So I'm not really concerned at all about Achane. He's 24. They let go of all the running backs that were kind of in his way. I think that he's another one. He could have a Gibbs like season this year. Probably not, because the Dolphins won't be as good, but that's his kind of upside, I think, too. Like, he has that kind of talent. So
yeah,
I'm feeling good about Achane. I'm not letting the buzz kind of talk me off.
Yeah, I'm not letting Tyreek dictate my projections, but
right.
he certainly, we haven't talked about it, but we're talking about half PPR. He is certainly a running back where it depends how many points a reception is. So if your league, it's 0 points for reception, I don't know why you're playing in that format. But if it is, right, he takes a big hit. And if you get a full point for reception, again, I don't know why you'd play in that format. I love half PPR. He gets a massive boost in full PPR. But in half PPR, I'm right around here.
Jonathan Taylor, next up. He's 8th in Yahoo's ranks. He's around the same in ADP. And last season, 14 games, 303 carries, over 1,400 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, added another 136 and a touchdown through the air. I mean, what really changes in 2025? I guess you lost Kelly at the center position, but I mean, yeah, the quarterback situation was bad last year. It's going to be bad this year. He added a receiving weapon, but I mean, Taylor seems a little bit slept on and not quite as risky as some of the guys that go ahead of him. What do you think of Taylor this year?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, because, again, in this range, we are more concerned about floor and safety, and I think Taylor provides that. He's, one of the true workhorses left, where he rarely comes off the field. The backup doesn't matter. Like, they're not going to eat in his workload. They're only going to come in to give him a breather. And last year, he averaged the 8th most points per game, and his ADP reflects that. I'm projecting him right around there this year. So he offers a solid weekly floor. I think people are shied away because, his ceiling might be a bit capped because he doesn't produce much as a pass catcher. And, he's capped just with the offense being lackluster with, whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones under center. But both quarterbacks, they're more than capable for rushing in for a touchdown near the goal line. So that does sort of limit Taylor's rushing touchdown upside. And also, Tyler Warren, their first round pick at tight end, he's been getting some reps, some short yardage reps. He did that in college at Penn State. He had a handful of short yardage touchdowns. So they might have a trick play or two with him vulturing away a Jonathan Taylor touchdown. But outside of that, Taylor offers a steady floor. And it's weird because he used to be, a top 3 back in fantasy, but now he's just kind of this unsexy safe guy. But that's kind of what we want in this range. So I'm more than okay taking Taylor. I'd say RB8 might be a bit high, but sometimes he falls to RB9, 10. I think that's a great range to take him. There's really no question marks on his floor. If anything, his ceiling's a bit capped. But even then, we've seen him produce as an elite back. So I'm more than okay taking JT in this range.
Yeah, he's a floor play. I don't mind him at all. He's still a top 10 back. I do have him as RB9, but I'd much rather, take him and pass on like that McCaffrey Henry tier, like if I'm in that position in the draft. So I think Taylor represents a good value floor wise here, because again, that is what you're looking for. And I guess it's just kind of hard to envision him producing a better season than he had last year, but the offense could be better. The schedule isn't terribly difficult, and he is going to be the focal point. So, and he has less injury concerns. So it's hard to really poke any holes in Taylor's game this year. So yeah, I think he's a very safe pick, and that's what you're looking for. at this point in the draft. So again, I think with a lot of these running back ranks, some of them we are different from consensus. Like I know I'm lower on McCaffrey, but I think a lot of it is, the interplay between, are you taking a running back or are you taking a receiver? Just don't get overconfident based on last year either. So that's why I think I like when we start getting into the Achanes and the Taylors, because that usually means you got a receiver in round one, and you could still get a running back with RB1 overall upside, which I do think Taylor retains. RB9, Josh Jacobs. Now he's an interesting case because on the surface, you can't really poke any holes in his game, but just under 18 carries per game last year and another 2.1 catches. So about 20 touches per game, 63% snap rate. It was an extremely run-heavy offense, though. So we do expect some pass volume regression for the Packers. They do seem to be loading up on guys who can line up in the backfield. Like you talk about Saquon Williams, their 3rd-round pick. Jaden Reed can do it, obviously. Marshawn Lloyd, if he's not just a figment of our imagination, is another one of these chess pieces. So they have a bunch of these kind of chess pieces to where the traditional running back doesn't always have to get carries, and then of course the backup quarterback as well. So is there kind of a lower floor than meets the eye, or do you have no concerns about Jacobs?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag because I think he is a high floor option, but I think we are kind of buying high on him because, like you laid out, like last year was a ceiling case for him where he finished as the RB5. It was an excellent season. But he played all 17 games. He was healthy the entire season, had over 300 carries. And the Packers were ultra run heavy. They were more run heavy than the Eagles, I believe. So that likely changes this year with, Jordan Love healthy. He was playing banged up early on last year. And, they drafted finally a 1st-round wide receiver in Matthew Golden. So that could hint they just intend to be more pass heavy this year. So it's probably not going to be the same pristine environment for Jacobs to put up top 5 numbers. So I just think that, again, we're probably buying high on him where, yeah, he's probably going to finish in the 10 to 15 range if he stays healthy. But I think last year was the ceiling case. And I'll be more willing to take the guy we're going to talk about next. But I think in this range, when Jacobs is being drafted, you'll usually have like a Ladd McConkey, Tyreek Hill, or T. Higgins fall to you. I think this is a range where I'm still taking receiver if they fall to me. If they're all off the board and I'm stuck taking Josh Jacobs and Bucky Irving's gone, that's when I do it. But I seem to be just a tad lower than Jacobs than the rest of the market heading into the season.
Yeah, same. I'm at RB12 with him. So a couple of guys that we'll talk about next, I would take over him. But I just want to point out the context of a guy like Taylor, who goes just above him, 80% snap rate. Jacobs 63%. So you see, like, low key, Jacobs is a guy who rotates out a little bit more than you would think because they do use the backup, who last year was Emmanuel Wilson, and then they also use a passing down back who last year was Brooks. And I would think, they probably want to get Lloyd into that type of role this year. But either way, it's kind of a ceiling capper there, especially when, like we said, this Packer offense is about as run heavy as you could be last year. I think Love averaged just under 29 attempts per game. So I'm not getting too much of Jacobs. I agree. I think it's buying high. Bucky Irving, RB10, 18.5 touches per game in his final 8 games. Do you think he sustains that usage under new offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard? Because if he does, I mean, as good as he looked, he's gonna finish above Jacobs at least.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's kind of like Achane last year, where I'm expecting more volume for Bucky. And last year I was saying Rachaad White was a clear frozen pond back. being drafted way too high in the RB1 range. And I didn't even think Bucky was like that good of a prospect. I just thought he was the best competition White had ever seen. And sure enough, Bucky was just hashtag really good. And it was only around like week 3 or 4, like we saw that flip where it's like, oh shit, Bucky Irving's like sort of the lead back in this committee. But when you look at, his usage rates, he has a ways to go where he was only getting like a 35% routes run rate from like week 7 on. And that's really, I thought that was his skill set coming out of college, was like being a pass catching back. And same thing with, carries. He was still pretty much splitting work with Rachaad White. So despite that, he was still able to average, RB 16 and more of a true split with Rachaad White. So I think that, the volume should go up this year. And even if the efficiency takes a hit, I think that'll help offset it. So I think that Bucky has top 5 upside. My main concern is just this Bucs offense won't be as good this year. I mean, they were really good last year, and they're moving on from Liam Cohen, so the offense might take a step back. But I still think that Bucky Irving provides a high floor. I think he's still going to be heavily used, exceed those 18 plus touches you're referring to. But I think we still haven't seen the ceiling case for him in terms of usage. So he provides that nice blend of, we kind of know he has a high floor, and we haven't even seen his ceiling yet. So I'm definitely okay taking him here at RB10. I have him as my RB8 right now. So I actually have him ahead of a guy like Jacobs. So I think, the time to take Bucky was last year when he was, RB55 or whatever. This year, he just has a little bit of room to go up, but I think there is a path there for him to, exceed ADP here.
Yeah, he only averaged 15 touches per game for the season last year, and he was, nearly an RB1 and was an RB1 down the stretch. And I think he does get up to around that 18 touch threshold. And I don't even have him increasing his receiving like routes run rate by much.
Yeah.
And he's still my RB7. And the thing with him is he's, like you said, he's very good. And so when he's on the field, they're going to target him. He had a 21% target per route rate. I don't think that changes too much. And I mean, there's even upside in that area because yes, the Bucs have a ton of receivers, but they also have a ton of question marks at receiver. And it could be a new offense. I mean, it could be just, it may very well be just the whole offense just centered around Bucky. He's the focal point, and he has that Jahmyr Gibbs upside as well. I think just talent wise, like we've seen it with Achane, in his rookie year more so, and then we saw it with Bucky his rookie year. So maybe he has more of like an Achane year too, but I think the floor is high and the ceiling is massive. So yeah, no qualms about taking Bucky either. Chase Brown, he's suddenly, I think, in a very interesting spot. Zach Moss, who's kind of, I guess, started the year as the 1A last year, ended up as the 1B because Brown quickly outplayed him. But then Moss got hurt, and Brown was the only guy. I mean, he rarely came off the field, and if he did, it was for pass blocking, and they just brought in a tight end because they have 86,000 of them on the roster.
Well, they have one more
Bengals.
Now in Noah Fant.
Noah Fant, yeah, yeah, man. Where did you end up ranking Fant? With,
like tight end 40. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Like I think 42. But I digress. So Chase Brown, behind him on the depth chart, Samaje Perine. I mean, this is like wow. Like we're still talking about Samaje Perine in 2025, and then you got rookie Taj Brooks, and the Bengals under Zach Taylor, just outside of Brown, really haven't seemed to be too interested in playing a lot of their rookies, in the backfield. Guys like Evans come to mind, and it hasn't been much. So maybe Brooks changes that, but even so, I think we just judging from what their coaching staff was saying about how, okay, we're going to use Brown as much as we can. We're going to be smart, but we're going to use him as much as we can. That translates to me as like when he's on the field, he's getting touches, and he's probably getting 20 plus a game, just like he did at times last year. Last year ended up with just under 19 per game over his last 8 on average, including 5.5 targets on an 85% snap rate, which is pretty much unheard of. Where are you on Brown? Is there any concerns about it, about like him holding up or the workload, or?
Yeah, I think there's definitely concerns with him. He definitely sticks out as like a frozen pond candidate, where he's like below average in most metrics I look at. So, and he's coming off the massive usage from last year because Zach Moss went down. But when I look ahead to this year, there's really no concerns. They cut Zach Moss. I don't think Samaje Perine or Taj Brooks will be a threat to his workload, even if he struggles. So he kind of reminds me of pre-Bucky Irving, Rachaad White, if you remember him, where nothing too exciting about him, but he had the guaranteed workload. And in this range, workload is king. So I have Chase Brown ranked here, despite not thinking he's a top, 12 running back in the league. My only concerns are that this is the Bengals. It's the most pass-heavy offense in the league, so there's going to be fewer, early down run attempts for Chase Brown than other running backs. And his pass catching usage when T. Higgins was out versus when T. Higgins was in was pretty stark. His target rate dipped about 5%, which isn't great. And the one thing I think that Samaje Perine and Taj Brooks could do is eat into his pass catching work. Luckily, Chase Brown, he does get targeted on early downs at a pretty high rate, so that could help stabilize it. But just my main concern is those backups sort of eating into his receiving usage. But outside of that, I think he's pretty safe in terms of workload. I don't think he's really at risk of losing work. So I'm basically treating him, like I said, like pre-Bucky Irving, Rachaad White.
Oh yeah, I'm very bullish on Brown. I don't actually. I'm interested. You seem pretty unenthused about Brown. I'm curious because I actually in the metrics I look at, he actually is fine. His real issues were just the Bengals O-line. I mean, yards after contact, he was up over 3 for the second year straight. So both the years of his career, he's been up over 3, which is very good in yards after contact. When he's on the field, he's getting, to your point, he's getting targeted a ton. And I thought he was a very good pass catcher. And as I Google him right now, the first headline that comes up is Chase Brown is Joe Burrow's safety valve. So, yeah. And I remember being bullish on him heading into last year because one thing I noticed was that his rookie year, he wasn't getting as much passing down work, but when he was on the field, he was getting targets, and that's because he was getting a lot of screens drawn up for him. So when you're getting screens drawn up for you, that means they want to get the ball in your hand. So the fact that they really have done nothing to their depth chart, and we were worried about a guy with a broken neck who's now not on the roster. Hope shouts to Zach Moss, but this to me is it's probably going to be one of those situations where Kyren Williams all over again, where it's it seems like a situation to worry about, but this guy is in his prime. He's been very productive, and he's actually been efficient too. So, and he passes the eye test to me anyway. So, I'm actually very bullish. I think he's like a sleeping giant here. He's probably giving people what they want when they take Jacobs that high, and maybe even a guy like Achane. I could see him. I could see Brown finish. Brown probably finishes as a top 5 running back if he gets the same workload he was getting down the stretch last year. And there's only room to go up in terms of the rush volume, for the Bengals. So yeah, of course with Higgins on the field, his target rate went down a little, but there's only room to grow. So yeah, I'm bullish on Brown. I actually like him quite a bit.
Yeah, I liked him as a prospect. If you remember a couple years ago, my comp for him was Robert Smith. If you remember him from the Vikings.
Oh yeah, from Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's good, and I wrote him up in my upside rankings piece last year, where I don't think Zach Moss is long for this world, keeping that job to himself. So wasn't too shocked to see him surpass Moss last year. And then when Moss got injured, he erupted, and that's what I'm saying. They really haven't added anything or made any kind of move to upgrade from him. So I agree. I think his efficiency could go up this year. It's still, a shaky offensive line and whatnot, but this offense is going to produce touchdowns and he'll benefit from that. So I agree. Just based on the situation, this is definitely an ideal spot and a similar situation that he saw last year when he was the workhorse back.
Yeah, the Bengals just don't care about their running game. So, I think that's why he was, inefficient. Because, again, when you look at his yards after first contact, he was a lot better. And that kind of backs up what we saw when we thought he would take over for Moss. So, yeah, I think if people are sleeping on Chase Brown, I'll gladly scoop him up in this range. The next guy, the final guy we'll talk about here, and then, keep it locked. We'll be back with part 2 where we discuss the RB2 tier and guys outside of that, the frozen pond and all that. But let's close it up with Kyren Williams. And yet again, it feels like he's being slept on. 25 years old, 4th year in the league, just signed, I think, a few hours before before we recorded, a new 3-year, $33 million extension. So congratulations to Kyren Williams. 2 straight top 8 fantasy finishes at the running back position. No other running back on the depth chart with more than 63 career carries, and that would be Ronnie Rivers. I mean, are we sleeping on him once again, or are there? I guess you could nitpick his efficiency last year. 4.1 yards a carry, 5.4 per reception, and a long of 30 on 350 touches. I feel like what you just said about Chase Brown is probably the what people may feel about Kyren. But where are you on him?
Yeah, sort of that Rachaad White type. But yeah, my relationship with projecting the Rams running backs the last few seasons has been tumultuous. So again, I think the contract gives us even more clarity. This is Kyren Williams' backfield, and as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a top 10 back. There you go. Last year, I was a bit concerned just based on how McVay was juggling his running backs that Corum could leapfrog Kyren at any point. We didn't know. But that wasn't the case, and that's not going to be the case again this year. So, yeah, Kyren was RB6 per game last year. And, he has zero threat to his job now that he got paid. Three years, $33 million, I think $25 million guaranteed. So he's going to have to fumble a lot and be very inefficient to lose his job. So I am absolutely behind taking Kyren Williams around RB12. I will say that there is some concern, though, around Matthew Stafford and this back injury. Again, he could just be getting rest because don't need him in camp. But if it does turn into something more serious, that could be a concern. Also, they probably wouldn't sign Kyren to this if Stafford behind the scenes was a concern. But that's what I will say is, Kyren does need this offense to thrive and set him up for those goal line scores to post RB12 plus numbers. But I think given his job security is more safe than ever now, this is what we want in the Rams backfield. And McVay loves leaning on one back. He doesn't like using rotations and committees. So Kyren is clearly the man. Corum and Hunter are clearly, the handcuffs. And yeah, I think people are sleeping on Kyren now after this news. We'll see if his ADP goes up, but I think it should. I think he is, top 10 back when we're, guaranteed a long leash in terms of job security. So yeah, I love getting Kyren around this range.
Yeah, I think the guy I'm really worried about in this range most is Jacobs, just because we've seen him kind of oscillate between these extremes. We know he's not a guy where you feel like you have to use him in the pass game. And obviously the Packers are gearing up to spread the ball around to different receivers than they were last year. But I don't even think Stafford is concerned because you have Jimmy G back there still, right? He's the backup, right?
Yeah, isn't that why Devontae Adams left Vegas though? Was to get away from Jimmy G throwing him the ball. I've heard Cousins could, agree to a trade to LA, but Yeah, it could be worse not
What?
having,
I mean, what? I feel like this is the best backup situation. Like, Jimmy G is going to average like 8 yards an attempt. McVay, come on, man.
Yeah,
it's Jimmy G. Like, he's not like incompetent. He was.
Jimmy G.
I mean, with Josh
scheme.
McDaniels and like a grumpy Devontae Adams, sure, but I mean, now it's like Devontae is going to be the one. Like when the Rams sign a receiver in free agency, the receivers probably watch. So now the tables are going to kind of turn. Like, Jimmy G's going to have to revive Devontae's career.
Well, exactly. This is something we might see unfold in the next coming weeks. Hopefully Stafford's okay, but just something to monitor for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, you don't like to hear that, but I actually don't have a big drop-off if it's Jimmy G.
Yeah.
I think that like he's probably just at the bottom of his, I guess, perceived value, but he's not that bad as a guy to kind of step in a McVay offense. He's been sitting learning now for a while. He's played for McVay and Shanahan. I think they'll be fine. They'll be fine. unless Devontae is Allen Robinson part 2.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
But my guy Tutu Atwell then will ball out. All right. That is going to wrap it up. But yeah, I'm same high on Kyren. Jacobs is the one guy. I think I have Jacobs at RB12. So that's the guy I'm a bit more
Jacobs and CMC. Are the guys that
Jacobs and CMC are the guys I'm really fading. Love Jeanty and I like Achane compared to the market. Think Taylor's a great pick, and Chase Brown I'm very bullish on, and Kyren as well. So I think it's fine to wait in the first round and get a running back in round 2 or round 3, or do something, get one in each of those 2 rounds, because you're not really going to have much competition when you get past the second round. If drafts continue to unfold like they have been, it seems like people take this 3 to 4 round break where it's just receiver. So, I mean, if I can get a backfield where it's, 2 of like a Taylor, Chase Brown, or even a Chase Brown, Kyren somehow, or whatever it may be, that's
so like taking 2 of these guys.
Yeah. I think that's a week. Especially if you've got a receiver in round 1, because you could just jump back on the train and 4, 5, 6, and you get your 4 receivers and you have 2 potentially top 5 backs. I think that's a pretty good strategy, because I do think the money kind of gives Kyren a little bump, and the Moss release gives Chase Brown a little bump. So we're starting to get a little stronger in the bottom half of the RB1 tier. That's going to wrap it up for part 1 of the Fantasy Flex here on Running Backs Week, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Part 2 will be out very soon. By the time you're listening to this, could even already be out. Sean and I will go into the whole RB2 tier. We'll go beyond that as well, the frozen pond. So make sure you check it out. And if you missed our quarterback episodes, those are live right now in the Fantasy Flex podcast feed. We'll also get to wide receivers and tight ends in the next 2 weeks. So be sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Flex podcast so you don't miss an episode heading into your draft. Also, fantasylabs.com is where you can find all of our fantasy football content. And be sure to download the all-new Fantasy Labs app. You can use promo code FLEX20 for $20 off an NFL subscription for 2025. Again, that's code FLEX20 if you download the all-new Fantasy Labs app. And got our live event coming up August 23rd, Joe's on Weed Street in Chicago. It is free to attend. The RSVP link is in the episode description. So be sure to go and RSVP and save your spot for that live event. Again, August 23rd at Joe's on Weed Street, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. And once again, big shout and a thank you to our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy, the best place to play fantasy football. Until part 2 is get this money.